Shabbat Shalom. It's been a while since we have seen each other, been able to be together in community, to make contact with each other in person. And since, like many of us do, I know I do, I miss being with you in community. So I've decided for the time being, as we try to adapt to these new circumstances, to create these little videos just so we can continue to stay connected in a little bit of a more personal way. So please bear with me. I've never done this before, so I'm not sure about the technology and how everything works. But I want to start with acknowledging that it hasn't been easy to face this new reality. It hasn't been easy, to tell the truth, for me to cancel our Purim service, or as I am doing right now, to shift all my classes to a Zoom platform. When things are difficult around us, our first instinct is to come together and find our grounding, our rooting amidst our community. But as is well known, the particulars of this unfolding crisis are such that they keep us apart. They keep us isolated. And to be honest, and though we will have that conversation Monday night at our board meeting, I can't really right now see a way where we could have Shabbat services, definitely not next week, and probably not for the foreseeable future. Which brings me actually to this week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion, interestingly, has a story that is somewhat eerily similar to our current circumstances. And let me catch you up for just a moment. We have been at the foot of Mount Sinai for a while now. We have already heard the 10 Commandments from the thundering mountain of God, after which Moses went up ostensibly to connect with God, and as happens this week, in this week's Torah portion, to bring down the written, or if you'd rather have it, engraved version of what we have heard. But since Moses did not have a Zoom capacity, nor was he able to record a video of a Dvar Torah before Shabbat, his disappearance week after week after week for now almost 40 days caused the rest of us left at the foot of the mountain to feel disconnected, to feel uprooted, to feel lost in the wilderness of our circumstances, alone and isolated in the middle of this desert, without any way back and without any way forward. And so we're kind of in this limbo, in this not knowing state. And we ask ourselves, what if Moses never came back? Panic really spread through the camp. And this is one of the things that, in making the parallel between the story and what is unfolding for us, is definitely what we want to avoid. But the question remains the same for us. What if Moses never came back? What if Bet Aleph never restarted? Well, that's not going to happen, but it is just interesting to me that our current upheaval not just mirrors what the Israelite went through in our story, but specifically because of what each and every one of us is right now going through with the unfolding of this coronavirus disaster. It somehow brings me to empathize with what the Israelites, in fact, went through in our story. It causes me to relate to their pain, to feel deeply their sense of loneliness. Right? Moses has been gone for 40 days and 40 nights. There is nothing to support them. There is nothing to tell them things will be okay. There is nothing to tell them it's just temporary and we'll be moving forward soon. I feel maybe more deeply than any time before their isolation, their sense of feeling abandoned. I am paradoxically able to gain greater compassion for them in these moments, which I can only imagine were moments of great despair. And so often, when we study or where we read this passage in the Torah, so often we immediately go to the events that follow that moment of great despair in the camp of the Israelites. We go immediately to what they did after that. And what they did was to really yield or collapse into their fears, into that moment of panic, and gather all the gold that they had taken with them from their leaving Egypt in haste, mostly by plundering the homes of their Egyptian neighbors, grabbing all the gold that they could have, that they were transporting with them, and melting the gold to create a golden calf. And it's true that this became their greatest failure. This yielding into panic, this yielding into great fear became their greatest sin. And I want this week specifically to pause maybe for a moment and truly empathize with them, to really understand their emotional state, their sense of loss, their sense of themselves being lost. So the teaching may be for us to know ourselves, to be in that place, in that moment of desert, right? That moment of feeling isolated and maybe feeling like a sense of loss. We're losing, I mean, specifically for us, we're losing this ability to be together in community. And let's acknowledge this. But at the same time, maybe the story is telling us not to yield like that our ancestors did in this ancient wilderness, and collapse into our fear and to yield into our panic. But here we are, feeling deeply with what they might have felt in that moment, wondering if not Moses, but the life we knew will ever come back, will ever be the same again. My wife, Amy, said something yesterday that I'm sure many of us have thought about, and probably as that thought arose, immediately repressed it or denied, or maybe even were angry at ourselves for even thinking it. But seriously, God forbid, some of us will know someone who will die from the coronavirus. So as a rabbi, I'm worrying about you. I'm worrying about you. There is a famous Talmudic teaching from the tractate of Shavuot, the tractate of weeks, where it says, Kol Israel arevim ze beze. Kol Israel arevim ze beze. All of Israel are responsible for each other. Now, in the Talmud, it is part of a conversation that the rabbis were having, being concerned with the domino effect of sin. This coronavirus also has a devastating domino effect. And we are all responsible for each other's health and for each other's well-being. Social isolation, canceling our gatherings, staying home, isn't about yielding to paranoia, isn't about falling prey to overblown fears. It is about saving lives. It is about being part of the solution and not part of the problem. It is about us stopping yet another domino to fall and to propagate this disease, the cascade of infections. So I urge you, though I miss you, I urge you to be, as the Talmud says, responsible for one another and to follow the recommendation of the experts. You know, Moses, after he came down and saw us worshiping the golden calf, broke the tablets, shattered the tablets on the ground, and then went back again another 40 days and 40 nights. And so Moses ended up spending 80 days atop Mount Sinai, just short of 3 months. But eventually he came down, and we went on with our journey. I don't know how long it will take until we can come back together in our sacred space and celebrate Shabbat and celebrate holidays together. I hope it won't take us 80 days until we can meet again in community. But it might. And I'm going to do all I can to keep us connected, to keep us engaged with each other. I'll try, hopefully I'll get better at it, to create more of those little videos to have before Shabbat. I'm gathering together with the musicians to see if we could also pre-record Shabbat services and to make them available to you also via video download. I'm looking at other ways to create moments and possibilities for us to be maybe not physically together, but virtually together. Know that our staff, your board of directors, and myself as your rabbi, we are here for you. We are a phone call away, an email away. We can talk. If you feel isolated, if you feel alone, if you feel too much disconnected, just reach out. You are not alone. We'll get through this, and we'll get through this together. Shabbat Shalom, and we'll see you soon. We take care.